Hi, and welcome back to Health and Wealth. I'm Ana Ramos, and this is Milou, and I'm so happy you're here. In our last episode, I had a beautiful conversation with Maxine Goyes about presence, purpose, and the energy we radiate into the world. We spoke about personal brand, not as something we build, but as something we embody. Because when our body, mindset, and mission move in rhythm, wealth stops being something we chase and becomes a natural expression of truth. Today, we're going to explore where that truth begins. Because before we build careers, brands, or even bank accounts, we begin building stories. The stories we hear, the ones we live, and the ones quietly written into our bodies as children. Our relationship with money starts long before we realize it. It begins with how we're taught to share, to give, to wait, to receive. It begins with how our parents speak about enoughness, effort, and value. And those early experiences often become the blueprint for how we experience wealth as adults. My guest today understands this deeply. Matena Valverde is a physiotherapist and neurodevelopment specialist based in Mexico City and the founder of Clínica Luli. For over 3 decades, she's worked with children and families, helping them grow not just physically strong, but emotionally aware and connected. Together, we'll explore how our earliest memories of money stories are formed and how we can guide the next generation to build stories rooted in safety, curiosity, and abundance. And maybe, in doing so, we'll uncover the lessons we needed to hear as children too. So, take breath, open your heart, and let's rediscover how the stories we tell our children can transform the way we all experience wealth being. Matena, thank you so much for joining us. And we're here in Mexico City. We're actually your first one or actually a couple of us now that we've been able to do the live version. So actually, I loved having you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And you have such an impressive history and career and in working with children and their early development. And, when you and I were introduced to each other and we talked about how children development influence their, how their environment, everything influences to their own self-worth, their own connection to their money story, as adults. I just couldn't help it, but I had to have this conversation with you and be able to share it with people because I think you have a beautiful gift in what you do.
Thank you.
So, so that obviously I know your story and I know your history, but, tell us a little bit more. I know you've been in early child development for 30 years. You've dedicated your whole career to that. So tell me more. How did you get into it?
Okay. I am a physical therapist. I've been able to certificate myself in different approaches to work with children with neurodevelopment disabilities. So I start with this because I always want to work with children, and the way to get closer with them and have this satisfaction that they development goes the best way they can go, push me to stay in this career and stay for 30 years, more than 30 years.
That's so beautiful. And you have 6 centers now?
Five centers.
5 centers.
Yes.
You know what? I just called it out into the universe for you to have 6. That's what that means. So, in this huge experience that you've had with children in your 30 years, and, we talked at this at length, how essential is, that those early stages of development into not only how they relate to money and their money story, but more important than that, their self-worth, right? I mean, we're seeing today, it's almost like, I feel like it's almost an epidemic of, our children are today having all this diagnosis and medicine and, how important is it in their connection to self-worth, their own self-worth, right? How important is those early developmental stages and ages that they live through in their ability to be able to create self-worth and ultimately their ability to connect to money and having a beautiful money story?
Right. I think what is good word to start to talk about is frustration, because when they are babies like 6 months or younger, they sometimes the parents or the mother that attend the babies right away, so they don't generate this kind of sense of frustration. So they satisfies every need that the baby has right away. So I think one of the first things that the baby or in the early stages the kids has to develop is how can I create my frustration and get away from. Like if you give them everything all the time, 24/7, they don't know how to win that, how to get that. So one of the things that they really need to learn about is that, okay, if you want this, you need to do this. If you want this, you need to do this. So like if you want to have a dessert, you need to have all your food complete. So they learn how some stages or some actions that they need to do to earn something. So I think that would be the first concept, how to earn something because of you are doing something. So I think that will be in the future, if I work, I earn money. If I don't work, I don't earn money.
Wow.
So that will be one of the first concepts they need to learn about.
And how do you do that with a child? Because obviously, you know, the first thing we want to do is if we hear them cry, we want to go in and like, no, mamita, please do not cry, like please. And we pick them up and we just hold them. So you're saying that by us trying to help them at such a young age, we're actually hurting them for the future. We're not setting them up to be strong human beings that believe in themselves.
Right. You know that the babies, the only way they communicate is crying, right? So if you know that the baby has everything they need, like resolved, like the diaper is clean, they already eat, they sleep all okay, so everything is okay. So let them just cry a little bit. Not let them like 1 hour. No. So I'm here with you. You have to wait a little bit, like 1 to 2 or 3 minutes, and then I will go and get you. And some people think that this will create a psychological situation that they will develop later, like something bad, but it's not. It's something that you need to regulate yourself, and you need to find a way that if everything is okay with you in the healthy way, you don't need to, I don't need to attend you right away. So I think if you let them just cry, like 2 or 3 minutes, if you know everything is okay, that will create their own way to regulate themselves.
That's amazing, because when we think about, you know, even when you work out and when you begin eating healthier, you got to start with the basics, right? You got to start with the foundation. So it sounds a lot like that's the foundation, right?
Yes.
It's allowing them to be able to communicate the fact that they need and resolve for themselves from a younger age. Take me a little bit further on along a young child's life, right? Just take it up a few years and a few years on. Tell me more about how do we continue to help them develop this ability of self-worth?
Yes, you were asking me about at what age the kids get conscious about how they relate with the money. So at 3 years, they already know that daddy works and get money. That's why I go to school. I have all my clothes. I get food and everything. And if I go to the grocery store with him, I know that he needs to pay with a credit card or with cash. So in that moment, it's very funny, because when you say, okay, I don't have money for this. Yes, you have your card. So get the money. You don't lie to me. You have your card.
Dad, I've seen that American Express of yours.
Yes. So it's something very funny, because you need to explain them. The card doesn't mean that I have all the money right now. And they need to tell them that, okay, we are going to get to the grocery store, but we are going to get food. No toys, no candies. So they have to understand that the money is used for something that the house, all the family needs in the daily basis. So I think that at 3 years will be the perfect age. So they need, they can understand what is the money for and how to use it.
It's so funny because I always talk about money as energy, right? And
Yes.
how do you introduce that concept to, if they start learning about it at 3 years old, and I'm like, now I'm thinking of my history, and then I'll tell you something funny
Okay.
about that. It's how do you introduce this sense to them, right? About money being energy. Kind of like you say, well, at 3 years old, you go to school, dad goes to work, it produces money. That money is used for us to be able to live our life. And then when we pay for that, right, it now helps somebody else. So it is an energy, right? And it's not like in today's world we talk, oh, everything is energy, but it is an energy because it's effort, right, that we're putting out. We're receiving, we're compensating ourselves, we're buying things, we're enjoying
Yes.
them. And by us doing that, we're helping somebody else, right? We're passing on that energy. So how do we begin teaching that in children? I mean, if they start this connection at age 3, which blows my mind because I thought it was later on in life, how do we teach them that?
Okay, here in Mexico, I don't know around the world, but here in Mexico, we used to have El Domingo, that every Sunday the parents or the grandparents give some money to the kids. So some parents have the cochinito, to save the money.
I saw that.
Yes.
The little pig, that's a little piggy bank.
Yes, that's right. And sometimes they say, okay, Daddy, I want to buy this. Can you take out the money from the little pig?
The little piggy
Yes,
bank.
and
Oh
so
my God.
in that way you have to learn, and they have to learn, and you have to explain them that the money that you are saving, could it be for something in the future, or just to have money for anything that will be needed later. So in that moment, every family in different way explain to them how you are going to use the money that you are saving. So they understand they have 10 pesos, 20 pesos, wherever the money is on the little pig. And sometimes they really you want to use it. So the father or the mother can understand or can take that decision where to use it or how to use it.
That's amazing. So here's one of my funny stories. I have tons of funny stories because I
Okay.
think that my parents did it unconsciously. I don't think they consciously did it. But when I look back and I recall some of those stories, and I'm sure I've rewritten them in my head many times to now be a little bit more positive. But I remember way back then, my parents used to give us $1, right? That was
Every week?
week. Every
Okay.
week was $1.
Okay.
But they were very smart about it. They never gave us $1. They gave us, 2 25 cents, and then they gave
Okay.
us, 5 dimes.
Okay.
And the reason they did that is because they taught us, and they gave us like a little piggy bank for us to put. We had to put the first 10 cents in the little piggy bank. The next 10 cents went to church. And the other 80 cents was whatever we wanted to do.
Okay.
And I know, I mean, I'm not going to say my age, but I sort of age myself about being, getting $1, right? Kids
Yes.
get a lot more today. But, the interesting part, and I remember, I don't know if it was either myself or my brothers. I remember one time the money that belonged to the church, which is, again, you can do the church, but it's also the act of giving, right?
Yes, right.
Because we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on, that how important that is in our own self-development of worth in connection to money, that as much as we produce and we receive, we also have to be able to give. And it's a balance, right?
Right.
It's a balance between them because it's not everything about giving and not everything about receiving. And sometimes if we are givers, we have a hard time receiving. And if we're receivers, we have a hard time giving.
Given, right.
Right? So it's like, we'll talk a little bit about how that happens. But, to finish that story, I don't know if it was myself or my brother. So it's probably one of my brothers. I'm not going to take blame on this one. It's one of my brothers. They bought candy, right? So
Okay,
at the end of
yes.
the house, there was a little candy store. There was like one of those convenience stores, and they bought
Yeah.
candy. And they actually told my dad, "Dad, I don't have the 10 cents." And my dad says, "What did you do with it?" He goes, "I bought candy." So he made him put the candy in the offering plate.
Wow. Okay.
And it was such an impactful lesson.
Right.
And it's a lesson from, and we can kind of segment into this, right?
Yes.
What my parents were teaching me from a young age was to allocate.
Right.
Because I don't use the word budget at all.
Okay.
Like, in fact, it's a kind of joke once I start working with clients and things like that. If somebody says budget, I'm like, ooh, you said the B word. Because I come from corporate America, and corporate America is all about budgets and budgets and budgets, and you must meet budget, you must exceed budget. And if you don't, you almost feel like they have a bat and they're ready to come and like hit you with it. Like, you didn't make budget, you know?
Right.
And so to me, when we say the word budget, I know people cringe, right? So as I'm working with people in finances and everything, it's like I watch their body language, and it's like it tightens up, right?
Yes.
And it's like, talk about your nervous system, right? You start beginning to feel that nervous system, and then the question is, why is that nervous system overacting, right?
Right.
And it's all probably because from a young age, right? We don't have the money. We need to budget. That's not in our budget, right?
Right.
So, and that's why we use the word allocate, right?
Okay.
Because to me, budget is restrictive. Allocate gives the power back to you.
Okay.
Right? So if I'm wanting to accomplish certain things, right, we allocate, right? So if I have goals A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I have so much money coming in, then what priority am I going to give it? Right? And it doesn't mean I have to follow it to the T, but if all of a sudden I want to give myself an extra latte or whatever the case might be, okay, so I give myself an extra latte, but guess what? Maybe I have to wait for something else, or maybe I have to spend a little bit less in something else, right? Or maybe I cannot go out to eat, and, maybe I make the dinners at home, right? So it's all about a matter of choices. So when I look at the things that I've learned through my lifetime, right? How do we begin to teach that to children, right? That ability to say, no, we're going to allocate, right? To have this beautiful connection with money so that we're not screwed up when we're later on in the years and we have this horrible money story, right? That it's so much more difficult to undo. How do we begin teaching children that aspect of connection to money, and, from allocating to giving to also receiving? Right? How do we teach them that?
Well, here in Mexico, families are, they're used to have like every year, they give like clothes or toys into areas that there are very poor people. So they need to go and get the toys and get the clothes with the parents to buy it. And so they feel like they are giving something because they already receive like Christmas presents and they receive like Santa's present, and we have the Reyes here also, and they receive a lot of presents in Christmas. So in this time, they learned also to give. I'm receiving a lot of things, but I also know that I have to give. So some families, they have the custom to go to these places with toys, food, and clothes and give to others. So that's a way that they can learn that if I receive, I need to give also.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. I call it passing on the energy, passing on the joy.
Right.
So I work with my niece on this because her room became very full of toys, right? Very full of little stuffy animals. And, one of the things I said to her, I said, my love, I said, what does each one do for you? And she's like, no, Tia, we're not giving anything away because I love them all and they'll bring me so much joy.
Okay.
And I said to her, well, how about we start going one by one, right? And we're going to pass that joy around, right? We're going to pass it to someone else who perhaps doesn't have all the ability to have so much joy around them. How about we give them a little bit joy, right? And that's how I began to teach her the principle of giving and paying it forward, right? And actually that was giving. The paying forward is like, come and help me do this, right?
Okay.
And so at what age, right, since we're talking about early childhood development, at what age do we begin to introduce those other things? So you talk about 3 years of age,
they
right?
Understand.
They start understanding. At 3, at 6 months, they start understanding that they cry, mom comes pick them up, or dad picks them up, right? Take me a little bit further on. So at 3 years old, they start to understand the fact that people go to work, right? Mommy and daddy go to work, I go to school, that is my job, quote unquote, right? So take me a little bit further on their development.
Okay, later on, the kids start to ask for different kind of toys or clothes that are more expensive, And some families are able to do it, to get it, and some families are not. So in that age, it's very important that every family understand what is the financial situation, because not all the family have all the money to give them like a video game or like a trip to Disneyland or like a very expensive clothes. So that stage is very hard for them, because if they compare themselves with other kids that live around, if they are in a school that is expensive school and the kids go to a trip to Europe or things like that, they need to understand their own situation in their family. Like, okay, you are in this school, but you cannot have what your friend has, that they go every year like a cruise or Disneyland, or they have the best clothes, or they have the huge video game or the latest video game. So that age, that will be between 7 and 10 years old, is a stage that they need to understand what their own family have and what they need, and make a difference between what I need and what I don't need. What I need to go every day, like to have food and clothes and transportation, and what I don't need, that could be toys and candies and something, a trip that is not like a need. So between 7 and 10 will be the age to understand this difference between every family.
And how do you, because I'm hearing you say this, and you know, one of the things that I hear in that process, because as we get older, we understand that the needs obviously are different, right? Your needs are different than my needs. And, you know, here, I didn't expect to end up in Mexico City for as long as I did, but I'm waiting for my new home to be built. So I'm here. And, you know, but how do we create from that stage, because it's pretty early on, right?
Yes.
In a child's life, for them not to say, oh, but we don't have enough. Right? I cannot be like this other person, and I don't have enough, because that to me already starts to diminish their self-worth.
Yes.
And that we see it later on in life, right? So how do we develop the sense of strong self-worth, but to understand that we're all different? Because I think that that's the key. We're all different.
Yes.
Right? And how do we develop that so that the language that they tell themselves it's something that's a little bit more, I don't want to say positive, because it's not positive, but it's something that serves them at that moment in time.
Yes. It depends on the father or the mother, how they manage this situation for every kid. To understand that, okay, mommy has this job, daddy has this job, we have this kind of money, we have this, we earn this money, so we have to split this money this way, and there is no more money for anything else. So we have to make decisions about which kind of quantity is going to be for food, clothes, and fun. So in that way, they understand that they cannot go further in that kind of money or that amount of money. So they understand between 7 and 10 that the family that they grow up, they have just that kind of quantity of money, and they split for different kind of needs, like food, clothes, and fun.
Okay. That's interesting, because later on, as I work with adults, right? It's like we're going back to the basics. That's exactly what we're doing. We're like, okay, let's start splitting the fixed things, the things that are non-negotiable, right? Or actually begin with the fixed things, the things that you need to have, right? So it's your food, your shelter, your transportation, what you said.
Health.
And then it's like, what are the non-negotiables ones, right? Or what are the things that we want? And from the things that we want, what are the non-negotiable items, right?
Right. It's the same.
And it's all a matter of choices, right? So I would say that at that point, then would be the time when we teach them about choices, right? So it's, if you want to eat out more, then you have to give up something else, right? Wow, you just blew my mind age-wise. And I'll tell you why it's a funny story, because, you know, Christmas will be in a few years, in a few days. And it's every year, but it's in a few days. You know, it's interesting, because one of the things that my mother used to do, you know, we didn't grow up with a lot. My mom was a missionary. Well, both my parents were missionaries in Argentina.
Wow.
My mom was American, went to Argentina. And like I said, I think that everything she did was unconscious. I don't think it was ever conscious.
Okay.
But one of the things that she did, because we didn't have to do all the things that, people in the U.S. did and all that. And, thank God that she had friends from the U.S. that helped them, through their time in Argentina. And one of the things that she did for Christmas that I would never, ever, ever forget, and it was so impactful how she did it, is that because she was always working, that's one thing, Mom, sorry, yes, you did work a lot while we were growing up. I mean, we had to learn how to cook at age 9, sorry.
Wow. Okay.
It was spaghetti and cold water.
Okay.
Yeah, let me tell you how that worked out. But it was like she wasn't coming home and we were hungry, right?
Okay.
And, but again, I've come to peace with that because she was following her vision of the things that she wanted to do. And hers was more about just giving. And I've had to, through my years, I had to scale that back to also receive, right?
Okay.
Because I grew up in a household where it was all about giving.
Wow.
And so, so like I said, I've rewritten my money story many, many times.
Yes.
But, one of the funny things not funny things, but one of the most impactful things, I think that we were about 6. I'm going to say it was about 6 because of where we were in Argentina. And for Christmas time, my mom was always very creative. So that's why I never felt that we didn't have enough.
Okay.
Right? She was always so creative and she made it fun.
Wow.
Right? And I learned this, I now connected those two pieces with my niece because anytime we say to my niece, hey, let's go do this, let's go do that, right? She's like, is it fun? Is it fun? Is it fun? She only wants to do things if it's fun.
Right, right.
And I said, wow, what a beautiful childlike experience, right? And,
yes.
And I want to go back into that. But, here's the little, and this could be almost like our biohack, right? For Christmas, what my mother used to do is that she would go around the house and create chores. Right? Things that we needed to do to be able to get back to the house and all that stuff.
Okay.
And then she'll put it on a piece of paper and she'll put a dollar figure on it.
Okay.
How much it was worth.
Okay.
And then she would put them all into a little hat or a little bowl.
Uh-huh.
And I have 2 other brothers. And we would sit there and we would play, how does that game go? Rock, scissors, paper?
Piedra, papel o tijera.
Piedra, papel o tijera. And whoever won, they went and they got, the little piece of paper from the hat, right? And we went around. And, before that, what we ended up doing before that, she made us do a list of all the people we wanted to give Christmas gifts to.
Okay.
And how much or what we wanted to give, and we had something in mind, and then how much it cost. So now we knew what we kind of needed to get. So once we had this, it was like, oh, no, I don't want to wash the car. But my brothers wanted to wash the car, but they didn't want to do ironing. So I would do the ironing.
Okay.
So we learned to trade. So my mother had us trade. Well, she's like, that's what you pick. So you either do it if you want the money, or if you don't, talk to your siblings and see if they want to trade with you, if they want to exchange. She didn't use the word trade, she used the word exchange.
Exchange. Okay.
But it was so interesting how such an early life experience actually impacted my many, many future years of how I saw this, right? So I want us to talk a little bit because this is a thing about biohacking, right? So explain to me from an early child development stage, what did I do for me from a psychological perspective, right? A neurological perspective for me to develop that aspect. And then what are some of the things that perhaps we do as parents, as aunts, uncles, grandparents? What are some of the things that perhaps we do unconscious on a day-to-day basis that starts to not build a healthy relationship with money and self-worth as adults?
I have 2 kids that go to therapy, that they have a very wealthy family, and they develop, like we call the síndrome del emperador, imperator's syndrome.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know the English terminology for that, but it's like this grandiose, symptom of grandioseness, that like nothing can touch me, everything can be given to me.
Yes, they think that they deserve everything from everyone. So they start to treat people like, you have to serve me with this, no? Also in therapy, no? When I say, okay, we're going to work with this, and this, no, I take that decision. I say, what are we going to do?
I love it.
Yes. And he's 5. He's 5 years old.
He's 5?
Yes. He's 5, so he's terrible. So I think that what we were talking before about that, if you give them everything all the time, you create a mind that I deserve everything. And I don't know if there is money for or not, I deserve, so I want it right now. So what you need to do, like a family, is think about how to make a little things that they know that they earn it. It's not like just because you're going to have it. That if you do something like your mother, then you earn this, and you earn the next day the other thing. So kids are very smart, very intelligent. They understand perfectly well when the situation of the family is in a good way, financial situation, or there is something that is not going well. I have a grandson, and that he's going to be 6 next month. And
Perfect age.
yes, and he broke a TV pantalla, and
Yeah, TV
also
screen.
a screen, sorry, and also the door of the bathroom, because he was playing with something that just break it up. So all the money that he had, he put it away and said to his father, "Okay, here's my money. You can get a new TV screen
My God.
and a new door for the
Poor
bathroom."
thing.
So my son says, "Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to divide. Half you're going to pay and half I'm going to pay, because it's something that is in the house." So they did it like that, and he understands that he needs to work again, like doing everything, like homework and things at the house, to earn more money, to save again money for him, because he already paid that. So that's something things that you can do at home, that every day you need to understand that the money is not just like that. You need to earn it because you did something, or because you are going to school and studying and be a good student.
Yeah.
So that's something that it can be called like interchange, like negotiable.
Yeah, you negotiate between them. That's unbelievable. I love that. It's so interesting because our worlds are so busy, right, as adults. And
Yes.
I was kind of telling you a little story how this little one ended up with me, right? And look at her. She's as long as she can be with mommy, she's in heaven, right?
Right.
So she's in heaven right now. But it's just so interesting how as we grow up, right, the stories actually do get developed, not just from previous generation. Talking to you, I'm even realizing more, because I always said that our money stories is how our parents raised us. Their money stories come from their parents, so we keep inheriting all this money stories, right? And eventually we end up with, being, and I don't want to say the word entitled because it's a word that's used a lot, but I think that we end up with this sense of lack of self-worth. Right? Because I think lack of self-worth is where entitlement comes in. Right? And I don't take that lightly, because I think that sense of entitlement, we don't just develop it because we feel like it. It's actually been put on us from a young age.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So just if you could tell families today, right? Because I think that we are living in an age where our younger generations are more and more aware. Like our younger generations, in working with them, they want that security, and but more than anything, they want the freedom. Right? And they want freedom. They want to be able to connect it to a greater worth. That's why you're seeing them being more and more involved with, just eating healthier and making sure there's less pesticides and that the oceans are kept clean, and there's a sense of duty, right? So I'm going to say that this is the time in the world where we can begin that shift. So if you have a parent today, right, whether you're a parent, I have nieces and nephews, or you're an aunt, or you're a grandparent, as in your case, right? What are some of the things that we can do? Because our worlds are very busy, and sometimes we don't realize that the little things that we do is without conscience, right, is what our children are picking up. What are some of the things that we as adults can do? And I know that the right thing is you got to pause before every decision. You got to take breath before every decision. But I don't have time to do this. My world is too busy. What is the one thing that you can say, listen, just do this one thing, and it's going to shift the lesson that you're going to teach your younger generation, your children.
For the future, yes. I think if you have like between 10 and 15 minutes every day before they go to bed or during the time they go to bed to talk about what they did during the day and relate it with what did you earn and what did you lose and what do you want to earn or what do you want to have, or read some stories about economic or financial situation, or even with stories that are related that with animals that they earn their own food, like going out to have like the food that the animals that go out. So spend 10 or 15 minutes of your time with your son, with your daughter, and talk about this. What was the best thing you did today? What was the worst thing you think you have today? What will you do to change that, the worst thing? That what do you think you can do to have a better day tomorrow? And have, if you relate it with something that they need to do by their own effort, will be the best thing to do. 10 to 15 minutes every day.
So I'm going to trip you up on this one.
Okay.
Should adults do the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. There we go.
Yes,
Because
of course.
I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, right?
Right.
It's like if we end up yelling or doing something that is just not in alignment with who we want to be.
Yes.
I think that we're very hard on ourselves. And I think that the way you explained it is for us to end our day with compassion.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because when we have compassion, we can actually
build something.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
right.
it. That's it.
Yes.
So this was the most beautiful conversation. I can talk here all day with you and go through experiences, but I just want to say thank you. I think this is such a beautiful start, and
Thank
Christmas
you,
is in a few days. So whether you celebrate Christmas or you celebrate Hanukkah or whatever it is, I think that beautiful act of creating self-worth,
right,
which ultimately builds our children into having a beautiful connection with their money story, right? Because money story is not just about money, but it's about wealth being, right?
Right.
It's about having that beautiful connection with themselves that allows them to have compassion for them, for their learning years, or to have compassion through, we're all going to make mistakes. I've made tons of mistakes in my life, and will continue to make mistakes.
Right.
Right. And I'm sure you have it.
Yes, of course.
We all make mistakes, but I think to be able to connect to ourselves and have compassion in the process and understand what that lesson was behind, it just helps us to continue to rewrite our story.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Every age.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
oh my
you,
God, it was
Ana.
such a pleasure. I'm so glad that we met.
Thank
We
you.
met through my trainer.
Yes.
He's like, you got to give her a call.
Yes.
And I did, and I think it was so beautiful. So thank you so much. I wish you so much success.
Thank you
Have a
very
beautiful
much.
Christmas.
You too.
And
Thank you.
just, continue doing what you're doing. And hopefully, we're going to talk again next year.
Yes, of course.
And I look forward to having having 6 centers, because you gotta continue spreading your beautiful word.
Thank you very much,
It's
Ana.
amazing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thanks.
As we close, I'm reminded that money stories are really life stories. They begin in the smallest exchanges of trust and love. When we teach children to see money as energy, a tool for creation and care, we invite them to grow up with balance, confidence, and flow. And perhaps as adults, we're still learning those same lessons, that wealth isn't something we chase, it's something we practice in how we speak, share, and show up for one another. Thank you, Matena, for reminding us that harmony begins early and that it's never too late to rewrite the stories we tell about money. And thank you, as always, for listening and being part of this journey. If this conversation touched your heart, share it with someone who's raising the next generation of dreamers, or someone rediscovering their own. Until next time, take a breath, honor your flow, and remember, your wealth being begins with you. Merry Christmas.